Welcome to the FlyByWire A380X. This simple tutorial will show you the absolute bare minimum you need to do to achieve a successful flight in this airplane. We're starting from the runway, but first let's head to the world map. Although the A380 doesn't yet support world map plans, I'm using it so I can identify my departure runway, my departure SID, and my approach runway, so I can enter those in the FMC in a minute. Okay, jumping inside the airplane, let's head down to the FMC, and we're going to head over to the initialize page. So I'm going to enter our departure and arrival airports. I'm going to cruise at 26,000 for this short flight, cost index of 100, I want full power, and now all we have to do is click departure. I'm going to select the runway that I identified in the world map, as well as the SID that I identified in the world map, and then hit temporary flight plan. I'm just going to scroll down a bit here to our destination, hit insert temporary, and then click on the destination, press arrival, and I'm going to pick the arrival runway and approach that I identified on the world map. Again, we're going to go temporary flight plan, insert temporary. See, we've got a discontinuity here. It's a gap in our flight plan. We can just click on that and hit delete, then insert temporary. This completes our flight plan, so we now have a full plan from the runway at Heathrow to the runway at Glasgow. We'll now click through to the perf page. So the fly-by-wire doesn't have an easy way to calculate your V-speeds. So for just this demonstration and for simplicity, we're going to enter speeds that are generally good for the A380. So that's V1 and VR of 136 and a V2 of 142. If we look at the box on the perf page labelled THS, the value we want to put in here is shown in purple on the PFD. So in purple is 34. So we're going to enter 34 and hit enter. So we now need to set our physical trim, that's the number I'm mousing over here, to match the desired trim shown in purple. To set the trim upwards, hold the mouse over the trim switch, it turns yellow, and pull it towards you. You can make smaller adjustments by actuating the scroll wheel over the trim switch. Taking a look at the PFD, we can now see that our actual trim matches our desired trim. Before we take off, I'm going to set our cruise altitude on the autopilot panel, so let's just mouse wheel up until we select 26,000 feet. We're now ready to go, so parking brake off and throttle up. As the airplane rolls up to its rotate speed, start to pull back gently on the stick. And once you have positive rate, you can bring the landing gear up. At around 400 feet, you want to activate the autopilot. The airplane will now start to climb and follow your flight plan. After a short while, you'll see some flashing text on the PFD. As shown here, it says lever climb. At this point, you want to move the throttle into the climb position. I'm showing that here, so the climb detent is that one right there. You'll now see a throttle climb annunciator, and as the airplane accelerates up to the red speed tape, you can retract the flaps. At some points during your climb, you may see altitude constraint annunciators, and you'll see the airplane level off. This is perfectly normal. The airplane's just obeying a constraint along its plan, and once it's cleared that constraint, it will automatically resume its climb. So zooming out the navigation display slightly here, we can see an arrow about 80 miles ahead of us. This signifies our top of climb. Once the airplane reaches its top of climb, it will start to level off, and you'll see an altitude cruise annunciator appear on the PFD. While we're at cruise, we're going to dial in our bottom of descent altitude. So rule of thumb, that is 2,000 feet above the elevation of your destination airport. Glasgow's at sea level, so I'm dialing in 2,000 feet. You don't need to press anything else, just dial in the altitude. And if we move that navigation display out again, we can see a down arrow further ahead of us. This will be our top of descent. Other things we can take care of at cruise include setting our auto brake. And if we head down to the navigation aid section of the FMC, we'll notice that our destination ILS has been automatically pre-tuned because we selected an arrival runway in the FMC. Other things we can check on the perf page and the approach tab, we'll see that ideal approach speeds have already been applied. We don't need to get more complex than that. So as the airplane passes the top of descent arrow, it will automatically start to descend. You'll see a speed and descent annunciator appear on the PFD, and you'll see that vertical speed start to decrease or increase in a negative direction. During your descent, you will see a pink dot on the ND. This means that when the airplane reaches roughly 10,000 feet, it may level off slightly as it decelerates to 250 knots, but after that, it will just resume its descent as normal. Another thing you'll see on the ND as you get closer to the airport is a pink circle. This is the point at which the airplane wants to start to decelerate. So as the airplane crosses the pink circle, you will see our airspeed starts to decrease. Here you'll want to start applying flaps as the airspeed tape passes the orange markers as shown here, and as part of this deceleration process you'll want to drop the landing gear. At the end of this process you'll be at full flaps with the landing gear down ready for approach. Just before the airplane turns onto final, activate LS so we can see the ILS information displayed, and hit approach. Shortly afterwards you'll see a localizer annunciator appear on the PFD, and the airplane will turn to follow the localizer. And shortly after this, the airplane should catch the glide slope. You'll see a glide slope annunciator. At this point, if you want the airplane to auto land, you can activate the second autopilot. If you did activate the second autopilot at 400 feet, you'll see a land annunciator appear on the PFD. Just before touchdown, the airplane will flare the nose. You'll hear a retard call out. This is where you idle the throttle, and upon touchdown, once that nose wheel is down, just apply reversers, and the reversers and auto brake will bring you to about 80 knots. At this point the autopilot will disengage, you can idle the throttle and taxi off the runway. This concludes our flight in the FlyByWire A380X. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please drop a like. Feel free to subscribe for regular sim content. Take care, and I'll see you next time.